So today what we're going to do is we're going to use factoring to multiply and divide rational expressions. So yes, you may have thought factoring was gone away, but as you can see, factoring is still going to be very much a part of your life. If we're dividing two rational expressions, we want to change to multiplication by taking the reciprocal of the second rational expression. So just like if you were dividing two fractions, you would multiply by the reciprocal. The same thing is true when you have rational expressions. To multiply, you're going to begin by factoring. Factoring all the polynomials in both expressions. You're going to factor as much as you can. You want to factor, you just can't factor anymore. You're going to factor as much as humanly possible. And then to finish, what you're going to do is you're going to cancel any of the common factors between the numerator and the denominator. So you're going to simplify by canceling any of the common factors. And then you can cancel vertically and diagonally, but not horizontally. So here what we have is y squared divided by 13x to the 7th times x to the first. So, excuse me, x to the third. That x to the third doesn't look like a rational expression, so we're going to put it over 1. Now, what does y squared mean? Y squared means y times y. 13x to the 7th means 13 times x times x times x times x times x times x times x. X to the third means x times x times x. And what we're going to do is, I wrote it all out just to show you, but we're going to cancel what they have in common. So take out my little red pen. I can cancel that x, and that x. Is there anything else that can be canceled? No. So what's left on top? Well, on top I have left y times y, which is y squared. On the bottom, the denominator, I have 13 times x times x times x times x. So I have y squared times 13x to the 4th. Now, I could have done the same thing by simply looking at my exponents here. So I could have done the same thing if I had said, okay, so this is y squared over 13x to the 7th times x to the third over 1. Well, the y squared is not going to go anywhere because there's no other y's. The 13 is not going anywhere because there's no other numbers. But my x, here I have x to the third, here I have x to the 7th. 3 minus 7 is negative 4, so that's going to stay in the denominator. So you could have done it that way just as easily if you don't want to write it all out. If you write it all out, you're not going to make a mistake, but you are going to have some hand cramps probably. Okay, so the next one we have 3x squared divided by 25y to the 4th times 35y to the 6th divided by 36x to the 4th. So what we're looking for here is, are there common factors or things we can cancel? Well, I notice that 25 and 35 both divide by 5. 25 divided by 5 is 5. 35 divided by 5 is 7. So now I have a 5 and a 7. So now I look, what about my other numbers? Well, I see 3 goes into 36, 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into 36 12 times. So in my numerator now I have a 1, an x squared, a 7, a y to the 6th, a 5, a y squared, or y to the 4th, and a 12, and an x to the 4th. Can I cancel any variables? Well, yeah. If we follow that canceling property where we have an x squared divided by x to the 4th, 2 minus 4 is negative 2, so that 2 stays in the denominator. Then we have y to the 6th divided by y to the 4th. 6 minus 4 is 2. It's positive, so it's going to be in the numerator. So now you simply write what you have left. So we have 1 times 7y squared divided by 5 times 12x squared, and multiply that. Now, the thing that gets confusing for folks is as they make these little cancellations here, they don't make these large enough that they can see them. It might be wise to, as you cancel, rewrite your fraction like we did here. We did it at one time, but it might be wise as you're doing this when you were canceling to say, okay, so once I cancel, what do I have left? Well, I have a 1 here for my numbers. I had a 5 here for these numbers. I had a 7 here for these numbers, and I had a 12 for these. All right, then when I did my y's, I had y squared left on the top. When I did my x's, I had x squared left on the bottom. And so you could do it that way. Let me make that look like a 7. And then still get the same answer. Now we're dividing. When we divide fractions, to divide fractions, what we have to do is change to multiplying by the reciprocal. So we're going to keep the 6a squared and the 7, but we're going to flip the sign to multiplication, and we're going to flip the fraction to 14a cubed divided by 9a to the 6th. So as I start canceling here, a couple of things I notice. I notice 7 goes into 14 and 6 goes into 9. 6 and 9 are both divisible by 2. So if I wanted to, I'm going to have a 2 here, right? And I'm going to have a 3 here. Then I know that 7 goes into 14, so that's going to leave me with a 2 there. Then when I look at my variables, 2 plus 3 is 5, so that's a to the 5th divided by a to the 6th. So when I cancel, that leaves me with an a in the denominator. So my final answer would be 4 divided by 3a. I don't know why that came up last. Okay, so now things get a little trickier, because now we don't just have monomials, we have binomials. So we have to look to see if we can factor anything. So we take a look at that 6x plus 6. Hey, they have a common factor of 6. So we're going to factor out the 6. Then we look at the 18x plus 18, and we say, hey, they have a common factor of 18. When we factor out the 18, we have x plus 1. So now we're looking to see what we can cancel. Well, we know that 5 goes into 10 twice, and we know that the x minus x plus 1's cancel. And we know that 6 goes into 18 thrice. So on the left, we have 1 divided by 1, and on the right, we have 2 divided by 3, which our final answer is 2/3. Okay, now we have the same thing, but it's division. So we're going to change the division symbol to multiplication, and we're going to flip it. Now we're going to factor. How do we factor x squared plus x? Well, we have a common factor of x, so we're going to take the x out, and that's going to leave us with x plus 1. Then how do we factor x squared minus 1? It's a difference of 2 squares. That was a pretty parenthesis. So it's going to be x plus 1 and x minus 1. That parenthesis is ugly though. So that's it factored. Now we look to see what we can cancel. Well, we can cancel x plus 1's and we can cancel x minus 1's. So we're left with x divided by 1 times 1 over 11. So our final answer would be 11 in the denominator and x in the numerator. So x divided by 11. Multiplication problem, we want to factor it. How do we factor x squared minus 4x plus 4? Well, what do we square? What do we multiply by that gives us 4 that adds up to be 4? Well, that's 2 and 2. So we've got our x minus 2. And we've got our x minus 2. Okay, here we have a GCF of 2, so take the 2 out. That leaves us with x minus 2. Here x squared minus 4 factors into x plus 4, or excuse me, x plus 2, and x minus 2. X plus 3 doesn't factor, so now we look for what we can cancel. Sure, we can cancel x minus 2's. And that's all. So we have x plus 3 divided by 2 times the quantity x plus 2. And you can leave it like that in factored form. So try these. You'll notice they're already factored for you. So that should make your life a little bit easier. Okay.